All right, welcome back. This is, of course, All Angles. The body of the departed Queen Elizabeth II has been moved from Balmoral Castle to Edinburgh, where there will be a special service on Monday, attended by the royal family. The UK's longest-serving monarch died on Thursday, aged 96. Just yesterday, her son, Charles III, was proclaimed king at a ceremony held in London. But now just to bring us the speed with the procession of the Queen's coffin throughout the week, as well as funeral details. Let's bring in our correspondents now, Olly Barratt in Windsor and Sally Patterson at Westminster Abbey, where, of course, the Queen's funeral will be taking place. Olly, Sally, good afternoon to you from South Africa. Sally, perhaps let me start with you just in terms of where you stand and what can be expected, of course, from this day moving forward, just with regards to, the Queen's funeral procession, the memorial service that's planned as well. What's expected from where you stand? Sally, are you with me?
Oh, I'm sorry, I lost you for a second, but yes, I am. So as you say, I am just a stone's throw away from Westminster Hall, which is where the Queen's coffin will be laid in state for a number of days later in the week. And that will give the members of the public an opportunity to come and have their moment to say their goodbye, to say their message of thanks, because of course, for most people here in the UK, they've only ever known one monarch, and that is and was the Queen of England. And so this will be their opportunity to say their goodbye to her. Before that, though, her coffin will be touring through the nations. We are seeing at the moment it's on its way from Balmoral, where she passed away on Thursday, all the way to Edinburgh. And that's around a 6-hour journey. There's a huge procession, which is thought to include around 45 different vehicles. And that will be making its way across the country, where people are lining the streets in Scotland to have that moment again, to catch a glimpse of that procession and to hopefully be able to see through the window and see the coffin, the oak coffin itself, and the flower wreath that's on top of it. And so they're standing along the streets mainly in silence to pay their respects. And it's got a long journey to go before it ends up in a few days' time here behind me at Westminster Hall.
And Olly, just in terms of what has happened so far, leading to this moment, take us back a bit, just in terms of context, and of course seeing there the Queen's son, now King Charles, of course, giving his first address publicly following the passing of the Queen.
Yeah, he gave his first address to the nation. Then yesterday we had that proclamation ceremony, which is really dotting some of the I's and crossing the T's. With the government, the mechanisms of government effectively recognising that, yes, King Charles is now the new monarch, having taken over from his late mother. Actually, in Windsor here, where I am, we've just had that proclamation read out here. That's how this has worked. It started in London yesterday, but then it's cascaded all across the United Kingdom with those messages read out proclaiming that the King is indeed now the King, King Charles III. There are lots of people gathered again here at Windsor Castle, paying their tributes, listening to that proclamation ceremony too. And yesterday we had that moment when Harry and Meghan and Kate and William here in Windsor all came out together and greeted the crowds. That was quite a moment here in Windsor. And of course, this is where the Queen will end up. I mean, Sally was talking about the journey through Scotland to Westminster and then that funeral service on Monday. But after that funeral service, it will be in the grounds of Windsor Castle behind me that the Queen will be buried along with Prince Philip.
Yeah, and we understand, or if you may just elaborate, just in terms of what else will follow. A holiday, we've been, reading reports that the day, of course, and you could correct me here if I stand to be corrected, the day of the Queen's funeral will be declared a holiday. Just give us some clarity in terms of what that means, especially moving forward for Britain.
Yeah, no need for correction. It will indeed be a bank holiday, a public holiday on Monday. That doesn't mean that all companies will give their employees the day off, but many will, and many people will want to go to London for the day, and that presents a logistical challenge in itself. We expect hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people on the streets of the British capital on Monday just because they want to be there for that particular event. And then through the coming week, there's lots going on as well. King Charles is going to Scotland on Monday for a service with his mother in Edinburgh. He will then later in the week also travel to Wales and to Northern Ireland. He will be accompanied by the new British Prime Minister, Liz Truss, and that is to show really that he is the king of all of the nations of the United Kingdom, not just focusing on England, wanting to get out there and see as many British people as possible throughout the entire country. But Monday really becomes a huge focal point where Sally is in Westminster. And one of the interesting things is that crowds are still gathering here in Windsor. There have still been crowds in Balmoral. There are still crowds in Scotland. People are just getting out to wherever they can to gather with other people and pay their respects and leave tributes.
Yeah, and Sally, speaking of those tributes, I mean, I'm sure you've probably noted, global, tributes being poured in, obviously sending condolences to the Queen, but also to the family during this very trying time.
That's absolutely right. We have to remember, a family who are personally in mourning. King Charles has taken up his place on the throne, but he must be going through an incredibly difficult time personally, as well as I'm sure is the rest of the royal family. So there are people wanting to share their condolences, who are saying how they understand people who maybe have been through grief themselves over the past few years. I'm actually standing just in front of a wall that was put up for the victims of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so many people have lost those close to them in the last few years and will be at least partly understanding the grief that the family are going through. Now, as you say, there have been a number of tributes from every corner of the globe, really. Not only here in the UK, we've seen state leaders from across the world send their tributes. They're also signing special messages around the world as well for Her Royal Highness. And we're seeing people leave flowers and notes outside all of the Queen's residences where they're able to share a message about what she meant to them, what she meant to their children. And there are many people really standing there in tears and showing real emotion, because this was a woman who was there through some of the most challenging times the country's ever seen. We saw her give a message during the COVID-19 pandemic and saying to people, we'll meet again. And that for so many people was a source of strength at an incredibly trying and difficult time in their lives. And so people want to give that back and show how grateful they are for what she's done for them and their families.
Yeah, indeed a trying time, not only for Britain, for the UK, but for the world at large. So you're seeing so many condolences coming in from around the world, reminiscing, of course, on 7 decades that, of course, the Queen had been at the helm. Thank you so much, Olly. Sally, that's where we leave it for now. UK correspondents Olly Barratt and Sally Patterson giving us an update on how the funeral processions, of course, are going for Queen Elizabeth II.